joke with my mom joke with my mom every so often because one of our cats he's huge. He's so big boned, it's crazy. He was the craziest little kitten. And he grew into his abnormally large bone structure. Dude is like a solid 16 pounds, not overweight. Not overweight at all. So whenever he goes and lays on my mom's lap, I walk in, I'm like, you're gonna die to cat. Because she'll sit there for hours. And I'm like, bro, you've got this 16-pound weight on your lap for like hours on end. It's crazy. Yep, yep, yep. Me and you both, Pots. 10 out of 10. I think my alarm is set to every 2 hours. I have a little alarm that pops up and is like, hey, it's time to move around so that I'm aware, because otherwise I totally lose track of time.
I've decided
Love
I'm
a
also going to do this.
discussion on how much one can push that limit of what's possible by setting up other things to empower and enable their products. Yeah, absolutely. That's totally something that we can talk on today. Sod, 10 out of 10. It's actually a lot of the stuff that when I put together like my own stuff, just me being freaking crazy, Blur slash Zrott science brain. A lot of the stuff that I invent is kind of from that perspective of, well, if another person took this, you know, could that empower them? What could they do with it? What are the problems with it, right? Which is something that I'll touch a little bit later. Scope and impact of your projects is something that's a big thing that the team has to consider. So that is on the docket. Same, because I'm stuck at work and I hate watching it. What do you have against videos? Damn, bro. Fern hates watching videos. It's crazy. We have arrived. The Velos has arrived. 10 out of 10. Is my microphone like not picking up the first bit of my sentences? Is it like it's picking it up? Okay. Okay. The little like the green light kind of appears like a little bit after I start talking. So I'm like, is it missing my first? Okay, we're good. We're good. Clean. Okay, clean. Yeah. Gosh darn Discord. If at any point I'm like cutting out or nonsense, fucking ping me or some shit. Oh, we are stalling at the moment for Tony to arrive because he's gonna do the recording for me because I am not set up for recording, especially not video recording. You can do audio recording, but not video recording. My audio setup is very advanced. I have like several different points of contact where I channel audio through like 3 different pieces of software, so that I can facilitate my piano and my voice shenanigans and recording everything. It's a lot of. I have all of the various things. Started recording. Check your pings, nerd. I started recording minutes ago. Oh, Tony started recording minutes ago, and we've just been going. Okay, clean. All right, we go. You could have pinged me in the meeting chat, Tony. That's the one I have open. All right. So, RPO Ticket Workshop. To set the stage on what I want to cover here. Okay. Um, RPO tickets. I've got. We're using Paint.net, right? I have different little fucking tabs. I'm gonna, because we ball. I'm gonna be going over what are they. I'm gonna touch on long form. I'm gonna touch on short form RPO tickets. I want to talk over kind of ticket scope. Oh, you're making dinner. Clean. Uh, good. And then I want to talk about like what kind of makes a good RPO ticket journey. And then we will have like an elongated Q&A section at the end, but contrary to other shenanigans, I will be intersparsing small Q&A segments in between each of these sections, right? I want this to kind of be a little more of a conversation rather than me ranting at you for an hour and then having a shit ton of stuff at the end, right? Because that is fundamentally what an RPO ticket is, right? And it's kind of the core similarity that you will see throughout this is it's having a convo with the DM kind of a vibe, right? And RPO tickets, surprisingly, are not very different from working with anyone else. You know, if you have a friend who's got a personal plot line surrounding their character, right? And you want to interact with that personal plot line regarding their character, what do? You go hop in a DM or some shit like that, and you're like, hey, can I do something? Can I try something? Can I attempt to do science? Right? And that other player is functioning as the DM for their own story. RPO is pretty much the same thing, except the admins on the RPO team aren't just, the things they DM are bigger. It's not just their one character story, it's world lore, it's plotline stuff, but the interaction is fundamentally the same. And that's kind of what I want to touch on. And various questions that I hope to solve and I hope to dissuade are fucking randomly on the screen here, right? you know how do you know what you can do? It's how, like, maybe you know what you want but you don't know how to get it, or you want an ability but you don't know how to get one, or how do you start an RPO ticket, what is the flow, etc. All right, that is kind of the vibes that I'm aiming for. All right. And to clarify, just so everyone's aware, RPO stands for Role Play Overview. That's what we have named kind of the lore and plotline team, right? They function as the DMs of the server. Most of the admin team is on RPO. I think we only have like one or two. I think actually pretty much everyone's on RPO at this point. Um, and RPO tickets are how players, you guys will formally check in when you want to pursue things or you want to get things greenlit, right? Now we don't have any solid categories per se, right? You may think we do from the front side because we do have like, oh, make a Noctum ticket, make a, an illusory ticket, make a this ticket or a that ticket, etc., etc. Um, but in reality, it's not that's more for our sanity per se, for organization purposes. RPO tickets will generally interact or fall into one of two primary categories. Okay. The first category, what the? I have to be on the right layer. The first category is interacting with the admin plot lines. All right. This is the first major category. This encompasses things, like the war, the cult, um learning shadow magic, by the way, uh the arbiter, it's werewolf stuff, right? Illusory leviathan, any leviathan, um right? If your character ever wants to engage with these, right? If you want to engage with these, right? RPO ticket, right? Is the vibe here. Okay. This is the first category, essentially. And in many ways, this is the bulk of what the admins have say over. Okay. So, because there's a delineation here, and the delineation appears, it becomes evident when we look at our second category, which is personal character development. Okay. Personal character development can kind of have two subtypes to it, right? The first subtype is when you need mechanical backing. Okay. And then our second subtype is when you don't need mechanical backing. All right. Now, both of these are handled a little bit differently. Um, and the good news is that personal character development is very much oh yeah, free build investigations. It's yeah, like free build investigations is another one. This would be like up here. Free build investigations. If you guys have any questions on where the category lands in here, throw them in chat. I've got chat up on the side. Um, Generally speaking, things that are owned by the admins require you to talk with them, right? They are the DMs of those things. Um, yeah, Scott says basically first category if it's something defined by the admin team. Exactly. Perfect. The second one is something defined by you, which gives you a lot more control. You own your character. Therefore, you can decide how your character plotline goes. You can decide how your character mechanics generally go as long as they stay within scope. And scope is something we'll talk about a little bit later. But things along like this and the upper level stuff, whether it be plot lines or specific attributes of the world that the admins have decided to own, that obviously the admins have to DM that, right? A great example is shadow magic. So for this season in particular, the admins really owned shadow magic. Those of you who might have messed around with the academy might have noticed that compared to other magical schools, I have very little written about shadow magic because the academy is a player project. And the admins decided, hey, we want shadow magic to be a big thing. It's going to be a big thing for Noctum. It's going to be a big thing for the cult. We are going to own shadow magic, which also was pseudo required because we were able to give people abilities. And so we want to make sure that we were giving people abilities appropriately, that they were properly tested. Like, that's not really something we can necessarily let the players own very easily. So shadow magic is very, very bolted down. It's very controlled. It's very owned by the admin team, and people that want to engage with shadow magic have to open an RPO ticket and work through the means that people have set up. Yeah, yeah, absolutely, Natha. Shadow magic requires an RPO ticket, and there are specific methods and pathways of obtaining it. Right? Absolutely. Um, it's not something like unholy magic, right? Unholy magic is, the admins aren't really owning it. It's out there. People have different theories about how unholy magic works, but it's kind of up to player interpretation in some ways. I have my own personal opinion about how unholy magic functions. Lothric owns it. Yeah, Lothric has done some crazy unholy magic shenanigans and whatnot. You guys have probably seen his crazy little green particle aura. Unholy magic is more ambiently owned by the community, right? Another concept that is a little more ambiently owned by the community is vampirism, right? Vampirism, and as another one of our very broadly owned topics, right? The admins don't have like, well, this is what vampirism is, right? For the time being, we're very much a little more flex, and people can kind of come up with their own strains of vampirism and how they want to roll it, right? Um, so that's kind of give you a concept on what to look for, right? Things that would require admin oversight are the things that plotlines admins are running, and mechanics or game concepts or world concepts that admins are owning, right? You can generally expect things that require any kind of commands to be here, right? Custom weapons and custom weapon abilities and whatnot, they also own here, right? If you want to invent some new item or recipe of some kind that is generally used, that would be here, right? Anything that involves kind of modding and admin commands, of course, in this category. Now, for the personal character development section, you have more freedom. You own the character, but we have two different subcategories, right? One is you need mechanical backing, right? Dreadthus and slash Veilson is a great example of this. He has absolutely been doing some really cool kind of theory crafting and RPing and progression in his character surrounding Venom Sap and Venom Blade shenanigans, which is very fun. But yeah, but he wants some abilities out of it, right? Which is mechanical backing. If you want an aura, if you want an ability, spell, that kinds of shenanigans, etc., etc. Um, and it requires an admin to do a thing, that's what this is, right? And this an RPO ticket for this is good. This is a personal character development. You have ultimate say on the direction your character goes, and the admins act as guides, as co-op DMs with you to, make sure that things are fun, etc., so that you can achieve your goals, right? The second subcategory is that you don't need mechanical backing. These are easy. These are the easy of all the RPO tickets. These are the easiest kinds of tickets. This is where you are can actually do what you want to do with what you have access to already. You can flavor your spells, you can change your character's appearance, you can do some decorations, you can make fancy stuff. Maybe the effects are more RP flavor than they are actual mechanical flavor, etc. These things pretty much just require us to give you the thumbs up, and in many cases, you actually don't need to make an RPO ticket to check in on this stuff. The times to make an RPO ticket to check in for your personal character development that does not require mechanical backing is if their concepts get really close to some of our magical restriction rules, or they have a very, very wide impact on a broader scale. And I'll talk about how you can kind of think about that later down the line. Okay. But you have a lot more freedom here because it's your character, right? Do we have any questions on this general concept and what RPO tickets are? Kind of the two general categories of RPO tickets. What would be and what? If you have a convo, put it in like the triple ticks, like a code block, like that. Put a question like that so I can spot it easily. If you have any questions for this current shenanigan. Is RPO ticket synonymous with research ticket, or are those two different things? RPO tickets are the overarching top category, right? So you've got like, RPO, give me a different color. You got like your RPO tickets, right? And then underneath them, right? Underneath them, you would have a research ticket. Right. So research ticket is kind of a word for long form tickets, which is something that I'll go into next. It is all right to make a quick ticket just to double check a lore fact. Yes, absolutely, and that'll be kind of short form tickets, which I will touch base on after I briefly touch on long form tickets. So all research tickets are RPO tickets, but not all RPO tickets are research tickets. Yes, this is correct. That is a accurate statement. Yeah, you could open an RPO ticket because you want to take your character story in a direction that involves a little bit of interesting store magic vibes, and you kind of want to check with the RPO team if that seems okay. Or maybe you want to open an RPO ticket because you could use a little bit of brainstorming help on stuff, and you don't have friends who can help you because maybe you're sad or some shit. I don't know. Maybe you need to open an RPO ticket because you want to interact with the admin plot line. Or maybe you want to open an RPO ticket because you want to research witch dust. Like, etc., etc., things along those lines. When I first started playing the season in season 0 as Vlur, I was the no friend guy, I was just kind of a solo Andy. And so I was like, I want to take my character plotline in a direction, but I didn't know where the boundaries were, right? I didn't know. Oh, I didn't know what was too much and what was okay. And so opening an RPO ticket to check that, 10 out of 10. Tony's talking about the get approval first. Absolutely. That'll be something I briefly touch on the short form related stuff. All right, I'll give it another like minute here, 30 seconds to a minute for any other last minute questions on this specific section. No, yeah, you're good. You're good. Damn. What are some good etiquette guidelines? Drop being hostile and tickets, paying. I will go over that question in near the end. I can totally if I don't answer that ambiently as we go, let me know. How do I make the fancy boxed messages? It's like it's the same exact character you used for what you did above, except it's three of the ticks, and then a new line, and then you type the message, and then three more of the ticks after that. Yeah, a little what the fuck are you like? I don't know what they're called. Tildes or it's the tilde key. Yeah, three of those. Okay, next section. Okay, long form tickets. What? Long form tickets are tickets. These ones, these. Player. These tickets exist for a while with regular activity. God, regular activity. Oh my god, what regular activity? Crazy. Now, long form tickets are tickets where you have a topic, right? You have a topic that you are regularly researching that requires you to go back and forth, right? Uh, with an admin on a more regular basis. Okay. Some of you have some of these, and some of you are aware of these, right? Witch dust, for example. If you wanted to go and research witch dust, um, you know it's kind of a trial and error. You're doing some science. Hey, I have some ideas for witch dust. Yeah, I wanna. Oh my god. Okay, you know what I'll use for example? Last season, right? We're not doing we're really not we haven't you've probably noticed we haven't really had radiant fiber this season because last season there was a lot of radiant fiber science and it kind of burned the team out surrounding it. I salute was a cause of that. It was partially my fault. Okay, I fucking I raised my hand. I was one of the radiant fiber science nerds, and when I researched radiant fiber, um, yeah, yeah, fucking snow. I'm gonna throw something at you. When I researched radiant fiber, it was a trial and error process. I don't know what radiant fiber was. I didn't know what its properties were. I didn't know it was possible. And so I entered the scene with no information in character, obviously. And so how do you get information? Trial and error. You throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. Okay, that's my style of these things. Witch dust is very similar. I approached Witch Dust last season in the exact same way. Most of the things that Zrott knows about Witch Dust were from throw shit at the wall, see what sticks, trial and error methods. And you know, I get very detailed with my stuff. Things like, hey, I'm gonna see what happens when witch dust touches a charged gem of every individual type. I'm going to see what happens when I mix witch dust with magical potions. I'm going to see what happens when I put witch dust in the ground that plants are growing in. I'm gonna take witch dust and see what happens when I feed it to a rat, right? which caused problems last season. So, um, this concept of like spontaneously coming up with random ass experience and ideas and what happens if you use it this way, what happens if it touches this, what happens if it touches that, what happens if you do this or that or that or this, etc., etc. um what if I sleep with it and tell it bednight stories? I don't know. It's very much yes, someone who has snorted witch dust has made a ticket over it. This is accurate. They have gotten results. This type of long form RP requires you to kind of go back and forth with the admin, right? You come up with maybe a small batch of ideas, you throw it at the admin, then the admin has to get back to you on the results. Then maybe based on those results, you come up with another couple ideas and you throw that at the admin. Then the admin comes up with other results. And due to a number of spoons the admin has, or difference in time zones, that can kind of be an asynchronous process that kind of every day or so you're making a little more and you guys are touching base and talking back and forth. It's not something that can be done in one sitting, and sometimes the experiments require phys reps, right? What are phys reps? Physical representations of your RP in the game world. Now, normally this term is used for items. Like, oh, look at me. I have a fancy demonic shard that represents this RPO item, right? Or whoa, look, I have a pendant that Yasad made me that is a fancy, that is a magical foci, right? That helps me focus my magic, right? Those are normally that's what phys reps are, but the concept extends because you can represent most things in game. You could go and stand at your table while your friends are online and emote about the science that you are doing. You can go to a location in the world and then emote that you are doing an experiment, right? There is a lot of like physically going to the location and doing the thing, which are also, it's not quote unquote like a phys rep like we normally call it, but it's the same vibe, same concept. Representing your RP in the world, right? And sometimes that happens when you're in long form tickets, and sometimes that can delay things because the admin's going to want you to go do it, but maybe you'll have to go get food, so you'll do it in like an hour, and then you'll grab them a screenshot. But by that time, the admin is sleeping because they're over in EU, and so then you got to wait for the next day for results, and it's kind of this async process, right? Things like witch dust. Spoiler: Arcane Weave will be in this category. It is making a return. Huge. Very excited. Um, so Witch Dust, Arcane Weave, altar tickets, right? If you end up wanting to like worship a Leviathan of whatever kind is actually applicable. Um, this would also technically be a long form quote unquote research ticket because there is a back and forth there, right? Now, the benefits of long form tickets are, a constant and continuing stream of history and, work, right? It helps keep things in context. Someone pinged me somewhere. Is that a ping I have to worry about? It's modding and coding. No, I'll look at that later. Helps context. Um, it can kind of keep things on track, etc. Right? This is a benefit. It's a good benefit, right? Benefit. Downsides. Oh my god, there are downsides. Yes. Um, it's a persistent chat channel, right? Sometimes keeping them alive can be tricky. Um, and they can be taxing to admin spoons. Okay. So there are notable downsides to these that are important because sometimes they're great, right? Sometimes they're great. Other times not so much. And something that we encountered last season was that these long form tickets were adding a lot of bloat to the massive amount of channels that admins have to scroll through, and some of them were kind of being lost in the sauce. And when you have a long form ticket, it can get forgotten about because things are constantly moving, et cetera, right? So for this season, this is something that we've kind of talked about. We're doing our best to shift our focus away from long form tickets as much as possible and towards short form tickets. Whoa, short form tickets. I need to get another. Where's my yellow color? Short form tickets. I actually have notes on this. 10 out of 10. Short form tickets. What are these? These are tickets with a defined goal that, once achieved, closes the ticket cleanly. Defined goal. I still have arrow. Defined goal. Whoa, defined goal. Okay. Don't worry about it. The line, it's fine. Lines just landed. We're chilling. Defined goal. Okay. Now this is the flow we prefer. If you're aiming for a 10 out of 10, whoa, we love that person's tickets. Short form tickets are amazing. Okay. Now, short form tickets follow a very specific flow. I'm actually going to reduce my text color just a little bit here. We have a very specific flow. Okay. And I'm going to walk you guys through the flow. We'll spend a little more time on this, and then once we're done with this, we'll step into some questions and stuff. So, step one. Uh, step one. Step one. Goal setting. The first thing, and this is a step that isn't just for short form tickets, but kind of for anything that you feel like you would have to touch RPO with, right? The big thing here is that you need to know, what do you want to achieve in particular. In particular is the big piece of this. Okay, hold on, I don't want the arrow anymore. Go away. In particular, in an ideal scenario, you step into the ticket already knowing, like, oh, I would like to, like, a perfect world. You step into a ticket and you say, ah, I want that specific ability from that specific mob, right? Or, oh, I want to have these specific little tiny, bonus RP attributes about my character, right? But that's not really entirely realistic, right? That's not totally realistic. Which means that when you open an RPO ticket, right, an admin takes it. And the first thing is that the admin works with the player to settle on the goal. Maybe make some more tweaks. Maybe you open the RPO ticket and you're like, hey, I would really like to achieve XYZ. And the admin's like, okay, well, what if we did it this way instead? Like, oh, that's not really feasible. Oh, no, sorry, we can't provide you with Megara abilities because that shit's broken as fuck. Maybe we could look for a different ability that still fits the vibe, that's a little more reasonable, right? And the first step in this is making it so that the goal is defined. Once you specifically, and I'm talking specifics, I'm not talking, I want an ability. No, no, no. You drill it down. You work with the admin to point your finger at a specific ability. You want an aura, you work with the admin to point at a specific, thing. You drill down the goal. Okay? And once you have the goal, and this could even be like I want to create a device that unwinds entropic magic. Okay, cool. That is a goal. You don't have to know the steps. You just have to know the final result. Maybe there's some questions. Oh, well, how much entropic magic can unwind? Maybe there are a couple little extra details there that the admin feels like they need to flush out, some guidelines, right? But once you have it scoped and contained and it's in its own little box and you know what the goal is, then the admin, right? 1A, right? 1A. The admin takes it to the team for approval. Okay. Once your DMing admin knows what it is you want to accomplish, they go to the team and they say, "Hey guys, Is it okay if this player accomplishes this thing? Right? For Lothric's ticket, he wanted to get like a glow and some shenanigans. And so we went to the admin and said, "Hey guys, can Lothric get this glow?" And team was like, "Yes." For me, for my Arcane Weave stuff, I opened an RPO ticket and I was like, "Hey guys, this I want to bring Arcane Weave back. Here is a write up. Here is how it would be defined. Here is how this would work. Is this achievable?" And they said yes. I was like, "Okay, my goal has been confirmed. 10 out of 10." Um, Once the team has approved it, right? We move on to step 2, right? And step 2 is your RPO ticket admin, right? The person who's managing a ticket becomes your DM for this ticket. Okay. Once things are approved, they become your DM. From that point, it's between you two. If they have some questions and things, they might go and ask the team for kind of, side opinions and stuff and whatnot. But ultimately, once the goal is approved, whatever admin owns the ticket runs your experience, right? Now, this does mean that your experience from RPO ticket to RPO ticket will not be uniform, okay? Because different people are probably going to be taking your various different tickets, okay? And different RPO members as DMs value different things, right? Some people are much more in the material component side. Some people are much more in the RP side. My brain is very logic based. I want things to kind of make sense in the grander lore, right? I'm also very big on empowering people to generate RP for others, et cetera, right? Um, so this is kind of the next piece, right? Your goal has been confirmed. Fucking DMing people or DMing me. Your goal has been confirmed. Your RPO ticket admin becomes your DM, and now you guys figure out the journey, right? And your step 3 is map the journey. Oh my god, you're mapping out the journey. Now, your goal has been approved. Now, how do you get there? How do you get there, right? The ideal outcome of this step is that you kind of sketch it all out as much as you can, right? You know where you want to end up, so you kind of, as you sit down with the admin at the table, and you're like, okay, here's this blank piece of paper, and we're gonna draw a circle over here, and that's where we want to get. But we're starting all the way over here, so now let's sketch out paths. Oh, maybe you could go this way. Oh, maybe you could go that way. Oh, well, if you go this way, maybe that happens, right? And you sketch out and you brainstorm how could you get from point A to point B. Now, this goes way faster if you already have an idea. Even if it gets changed, even if it's totally different, if you sit down to the table with an idea to pitch, with already, I was thinking that I could go about it this way, then that gives the admin a snippet on where your brain is. The admin's like, oh, well, they've already come up with this. We could probably use this as a starting point, and maybe we adjust this, maybe we adjust that. Maybe the admin suggests something, and then you're like, whoa, that's really cool. We can integrate that over here, right? And you powwow, right? And you come up with the how do you get there, right? Once you have figured out, how do you get there, right? How do you get to the goal, right? The admin will take notes in our master RPO document, right? Where we keep track on player projects and where players are and what players are trying to do, right? So we can kind of keep it and whatnot. Once you have mapped out your journey, um, and the admin gives the thumbs up, right? Admin gives green light. You both agree on the target path, right? Then, you know, you close the ticket, surprisingly, because you know what your goal is. Okay. You know the journey. Maybe the journey has checkpoints, you know? And your step 4, we're talking short form tickets, right? Step 4 is that, the player runs their own journey. You RP it async, okay? Um, and so this is where our journaling comes in, right? This is where, you log it in a journal, you take screenshots, you keep record of your journey, right? Right? All right, hot second here. Oh wait, no, wait. Canvas size. Hold, hold. Oh geez, sleeping lizards. Holding, holding, holding. Okay. We're good. Saved. I was running out of space. All right, so you log it in your journal, and then this is ideal because this is asynchronous. So this means we don't have to keep that ticket open. The admin doesn't have to check in with you on a regular basis. You are free to RP the journey yourself based on what you agreed with your DMing admin. Okay? That's huge. Because that means this process right here, these 3 steps, if you step into a ticket with a solid idea on what you want to achieve and at least a basic concept on how to get there, based on how long it takes for the team to approve your goal, this could be done in a few hours easily, even with a little bit of asynchronous communication in there. Worst case, a day if things are really going smoothly, right? And then you are free. You have been given the green light. We salute you, soldier. Go into the world and enrich everyone's RPO experience with your wacky ass project, right? 10 out of fucking 10. And then when you hit checkpoints, maybe in step 3 you're like, "Hey, go ahead and RP out this until this point, then let us know." Right? Maybe you sketched it out and you're like, "Oh, we're going to have 3 big checkpoints here that I want to chime in for results or something," right? Um then we enter step 5. We're using a different green color apparently. Step 5, right? Let's say reconnect. Well, it's the reconnecting, right? Let's say, the player hits a checkpoint, right? Needs a question answered, right? Maybe you're RPing this and maybe you realize something middle of the journey and you kind of want to chime in and be like, "Oh, geez, I kind of have a question that I need answered," right? Or maybe you believe, right, that you completed the journey, the journey, right? This is where, right, you open a new RPO ticket to check in. Right now, you can ask for a specific admin when you open an RPO ticket. Whoa. I don't think we actually advertise that often. You are free to. If you open an RPO ticket and you have had an admin that has worked with you in the past on the current project, you can just ping them. That's fine. You can open the RPO ticket. You can be like, "Hey, I'm checking in because I've had some questions about an ongoing project." And then in the chat, you ping the admin that you worked with last time and say, "Hey, Mr. Admin, I've got a couple quick questions. This is where I'm at, blah, blah, blah," right? You can do that. That is totally fine. Maybe as you go around RPO tickets, there's one item in particular where you two had a blast working on an RPO ticket. Yeah, like Lothric and Letifer have worked great together on Lothric's various shenanigans. You can ping people. That's okay. You can ask for a specific admin when you open an RPO ticket. And it's he wants to approve everything. Yeah, okay. Well, maybe not for you anymore. Now you've said that. We'll have to see. Um, but yeah. So, and in some cases, if you have a question about your current project and another admin has served as the DM in the past for your current project, that can kind of speed things up a bit because they already know. They're on the same page as you. Right? You open the ticket and hey, Mr. Mr. Tony, I have been working on this project and you greenlit it before and we talked about the flow and whatnot and I've hit this point, but I have a question, blah blah blah, and then you can answer that. You're like, "Okay, clean," and then you can close it out right away. Maybe you end the end of your journey and you're like, "I have completed it. We have done it. I have done the big ritual. We have done the big things. It has done. And then we're like, whoa, you did it clean. And you're like, here are my screenshots. Here's my journal. Here's the proof that I did it. And I'm not lying to you. And you're like, whoa, awesome. And then we give you the thing. And that's it. That closes it out. It's all written and done, right? The big thing about short form tickets, right, is short form tickets allow us to work asynchronously. Now, this is a word that asynchronously means that we can both work at the same time without having to constantly be touching each other, right? We're not stuck to each other's hips in parallel where you have to wait for me to move, then I have to wait for you to move, and then et cetera, et cetera. We can touch base, we can get our expectations, get our goals in line, and then we can separate again. And you can go RP it, and then I can chill. And then when things come back together, we touch base again and we reconnect and we check to see if things are good, and then we separate again and we're good, right? And what this lets us do from the admin perspective, because another thing I want to do is kind of help you guys see it from the admin perspective a little bit too, right? Is that if we have 50 people in the server who want to do RPO tickets, and let's be very, very, very generous and say each one only has one ticket, that's 50 tickets. That's a lot of tickets, guys. It's a lot of tickets. And then let's say you also so the benefit of the short form tickets is that it lets us close them to keep the overall ticket count low. And the lower the overall open ticket count, the easier it is for people to keep track of things. The more tickets we have, the harder it is for the admin team to keep track of things. This isn't bad. This is not me telling you to not open tickets. It's just the reality of the situation, fundamentally, right? It's just how it works. And we have a whole bunch of various methods in the back to help us keep track on things. Like I've been acting as a ticket wrangler. Well, I'll go in and I'll skim through all the RPO tickets and I'll ping people and be like, hey, this ticket needs some life in it. Hey, this ticket hasn't been seen. Hey, I think we can close this one out. Hey, this person needs this type of information. Et cetera, et cetera. Mike, I know, right? Snow. I swear, if we hit RPO 3, I'm throwing someone out a window. We are being very aggressive to not reach an RPO 3 category. Um, and what it overall this gives you guys the creative freedom to RP things out. It keeps everyone on the same page expectation wise. It helps us manage the ticket amount. It's better for the players and it's sustainable for the team, which is the huge bit. So this is the primary form of ticket we will be moving people towards. Now, as we said in prior things, long form tickets do have their place. They do exist. They have their places, and they will be used when appropriate. But the majority of our interactions with you guys, we want to see if we can do short form tickets, right? Um, so that's the vibe. That's the flow. Do we have any questions now that we've kind of touched on long form tickets and short form tickets? Let's take a pause. Let's do some questions surrounding these two types of general tickets. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them at me. What sort of project is long form ticket worthy? A project that requires you to regularly get results from an admin. If it's a fuck around and find out, bouncing ideas off the wall and then coming up with new ideas after you get the results of the previous ideas, those are long form ticket worthy, right? Witch Dust research, Arcane Weave research, um, yeah, illusion tickets, for example, are also like cult related tickets, or like, oh, I want to try and worship the Leviathan. Leviathan, give me your power, right? Kind of back and forth. If a ticket is going to have a whole bunch of regular activity and requires a constant back and forth between the admin and the player over a long period of time, that's a long form ticket, right? That's a long form ticket. How to not feel bad pinging admins. Okay, listen. All right. My mouse is currently, I am scrolled to the bottom of the server right now. Okay. I have season 1 info legacy collapsed. I have all the season 1 stuff collapsed, okay? And I'm gonna do actually no, I'll go to the top and then I'll scroll down because it'll be nicer on my finger. Hold on. Okay. Top of the server. And 1 scroll, 2 scrolls, 3 scrolls, 4 scrolls, 5 scrolls, 6 scrolls, 7 scrolls, 8 scrolls, 9 scrolls. It takes me full 9 full scrolls to scroll down the Discord list, okay? This does not mean we are overworked. This means we have a shit ton of channels to remember. There's a lot of fucking channels to remember. This means pinging us is huge because it puts the red dot, okay? Half the server is glowing white for me, okay? All right? Having the channel glow white in the UI is not viable for getting the attention of an admin. The red blip upon getting pinged is how you will reliably get attention. Now, my rule of thumb personally is if I don't hear from and it depends on the project. If it's a really damn pressing project and I need to get the shit moving because shit's happening, if I don't hear anything over 24 hours, then I'll ping, right? I'll do like 1 ping every 24 hours. If it's not super pressing, and I'm like, oh, it's okay, this isn't super pressing, it's all right if this takes a little bit, I'll ping like once every 3 days. So it varies depending on how pressing the project is in relation to the current situation and environment, right? Do not feel bad about pinging the admins. It helps us keep track on things. I am pinging admins for you on a regular basis when I wrangle tickets. Okay.
It's very
So
nice.
yeah. So literally when like I go through every single RPO ticket and I ping the entire RPO team and I say, this ticket needs this, that ticket needs that, this ticket needs that, that ticket. Like I do it for you anyway. Do not feel bad about pinging your controlling admin. If you feel like it has been more than 24 hours, then you haven't heard anything and things might be, stalling. Okay. That is absolutely okay. Okay. Scrolling. Yep, talking about all this. How much focus on the story do you as an admin expect from a player? None, frankly. If you're talking about the general overall admin plotline, it's gonna vary. For all intents and purposes, though, like in my personal opinion, if you don't want to interact with the admin plotline, then that's fine. Fucking salute, part to you. That's okay. You can ignore it. Like I'm not gonna make you interact with the admin plotline if you don't want to. Um, there are certain plot lines that, of course, admins are look. Not even just admins. Let's be real. Let's be real. Okay. Every single person in this community has the storyteller itch, right? We all have it. Everyone here has it. That's why we're here. Everyone has it. We all have a piece of us that wants to tell a story to other people. You guys are the exact same as the admins are in that regard. So when an admin's telling a story, of course they want people to engage in the story because they're excited to tell the story and they want to tell a cool story with other people, right? As the DM of a story, you want other people to interact with it. I think we can all attest and agree that this is what we want, right? Like this is why we're here. So while there is no like, oh, you have to interact with our plot lines, we want you to because we think it would be fun. We want to have fun. We think it would be fun if people interact the plot lines. That's why we're doing it in the first place, right? Um, sorry, I mean the players RPO story there slash R time. Oh, let me see. I mean the players RPO story there slash R. Um, this will so like if you come to an RPO ticket, how much focus on the stories and admin do you expect? Um, it'll vary, right? Me personally, I can kind of talk about me personally, right? Me, Vlur brain here. Hello. Vlur personally, the story is cool. I'm all for story, but I actually put way more value on generating roleplay for other people. You know, the story could be real fucking basic. The story could be the most simplistic, standard, repeated story trope on the planet. Power to you, salute, right? I'm not someone who's going to go over the finicky parts of the story necessarily. I'm going to be the person who goes over the, does it make sense in the current world lore? Does it work with our magic restrictions? And are you generating role play with other people? How can you get other people involved, right? And that's something I'll rant about a little bit later. But that's me personally, and how much an admin puts emphasis on the story component of your various RPO projects will vary, right? It will vary. How can we as players make the experience more worthy and enjoyable? That is a section I will be going over in a little bit, so I'll pause on that one. Any pet peeves that are unsafe that are safe to share with us players so we can help avoid or aid the admin team? Yeah, a little bit. I can touch on a little bit those later as well. That kind of goes hands in hands with how can you make it more worthy and enjoyable. I can kind of go over common pain point patterns in combination with suggestions on other things. Okay. Is there a how to or a visual representation on how to organize or make a research ticket slash diary? Like a template players can follow to streamline admin workload. We don't have a template. No. There are some really, really good journals that are just kind of ambiently around in the community that have done really good. And it'll, as far as like journaling um, is concerned, my greatest recommendation is go peruse some people's journals. There's some crazy shit. Dreadless slash Valeson's journal is really cool. Jamie's journal for his holy magic stuff is super cool. I think Emery also has a really cool journal.
I would like to
Um,
shout out Valeria's Shadow Journal because wow.
yeah, Valeria's got a really cool shadow journal. A great example on how to learn how to do the journaling piece is frankly go peruse, go scout out, see how other people are doing it, pick up and steal little formatting things. Right, I stole how I write bats from someone else. Okay, so, it's very much my greatest recommendation for the journal piece is go peruse people's research journals and take ideas from that. As far as a template for like a research like a ticket, right? We don't have a template. We more have the goals, right, and the concepts, right? So it's this initial piece of, if you're going to do a research ticket, do your best to come up with things um before you open the ticket so you can dive right into it. If it's a long form research ticket, right? Can flop back here. If it's a long form research ticket, some potential ideas would be some potential things could be list your experiments and I try this stuff in bulk is very useful. Come up with a few different things at once and chuck it at the admin saying, I try these 5 things. And then the admin can give you the 5 answers. Bonus points if you're kind of if then. Oh, I tried this. If the result is something like this, I also try that. If the result's something like this, then I try that, right? Try to pre-set up and give a bulk of various experiments can help with the asynchronous nature, especially if the person you're working with is in a different time zone or has a different schedule than you. That way, it's not just like I try this one thing, and then they answer the one thing, and then you try one more thing, and they answer one more thing. If it's like one by one by one by one by one, that's a great way to make a research ticket last for 2 months. Okay. The shotgun approach and grouping up a whole bunch of ideas at once as much as possible and give the admin a bulk of things and then they can sit down when they have the time and go through your bloated list of various tests. That's very, very useful. Okay, I'm scrolling. Question: what are the things that are generally speaking unrealistic and cannot be done story mechanically wise? We can actually go over the magical limits a little bit later. Maybe at the end, I'll sit down and go over the magical limits and whatnot. Okay, we're gonna continue. We're moving on. We're moving on. Uh, ticket scope. RPO ticket scope. This is a topic I wanted to touch on because this actually lends into that question a little bit, which is very nice. What are the things that can generally be speaking in unrealistic levels? Shenanigans. Yeah, let me grab this. Okay, so I have a couple things I can just copy paste. The single greatest factor in whether a player can achieve what they want is scope. This is the single greatest factor. Okay? Single by far the single greatest. This a little bit. Oh, and the reality of the situation is when you come to the RPO team with a ticket, right? The RPO team is constantly juggling several limiters to keep this a collaborative storytelling environment. And even though you guys don't necessarily have to think about this on a regular basis, understanding how the team thinks about scope, right, can make you a better ticket writer and can help you wrap your head around what is and is not possible. Okay? The first major limiter in question, right, is magical limitations, right? The ceiling. Now, this is something that we have I don't actually think we've codified it in prior seasons. This is the first season we've codified this, and we have them written down up in the like lore section somewhere or some shit. I probably should have grabbed a link. If someone wants to grab a link and post that, feel free. And what this means is that there is a ceiling to what is accomplishable, right? We are in a medium magic season, so there is a upper bound on what is achievable. Now, why does this ceiling exist, right? Why ceiling? Why not just infinite creativity, right? We're here to tell stories. Why not crazy stories? Why ceiling? Okay. There are some concepts that can become so damn abstract that they become unplayable. Okay? A great example of this is the concept of ascending to a god. Okay? The concept of ascending to a god. You as a human being in real life, sitting there in front of your computer, looking at this shitty paint.net presentation and listening to me rant, cannot comprehend what it actually means to be a godlike entity. Therefore, you can't roleplay that effectively. You can't convey that effectively, right? The only good quote unquote instances of people role playing godlike entities I have ever seen have been godlike entities with severe restrictions that still make them functionally mortal, right? Um and so it's too abstract and it lends into some problems and it opens Pandora's box in a way where it blooms in scope, which is something you'll hear me say a couple times. Another thing is that it discourages jack of all trades, magical flexibility that can be applied to almost anything, right? I know we have a lot of floating opinions in the community surrounding hand waving using blood magic for medical RP, right? This is a concept along those lines. In a very low magic season, for example, if we were to live in a world where we pulled that ceiling down, you can't just hand wave healing with blood magic. You have to be more engaged and be more creative and come up with more solutions to potential medical problems, right? Now, in this current situation, we're in medium magic, so not as crazy, right? And then what it does, which I think someone mentioned here as well, it keeps everyone on the same playing field. The general player base, we are physical beings in the realm at Vardoran. Okay? We have a variety of species, but we're all generally on the same playing field. We all bleed. We can all get stabbed. We all have access to generally the same magic, unless you're crazy. Um, you know, we're roughly all we're all standing on the same ground, right? Our feet are firmly planted on the same ground. We're on the same level of the castle. Okay. If we didn't have this ceiling, people could step up to a totally different level or step down to a totally different level. And we have situations where people are now no longer on the same playing field. And how do the players interact with each other who is on different levels? And it's kind of a mess, right? So, our overall goal, right? Our overall goal here is a shared sandbox. Nobody in a completely different stratosphere. We want everyone mostly on the same vibe, right? And our current magic restrictions are a fantastic step in the right direction. You can absolutely expect us to continue this into future seasons, of course, adjusting them per season, and potentially make them more detailed and more fleshed out so you have a better concept of where that ceiling exists, right? Right. So that's the first primary limiter. That's why we have our magical limitations to give you kind of a little bit of concept. Our second limiter, second and third order effects, right? Draw a couple lines to make it fancy. Second and third order effects. This isn't something you guys necessarily have to think about, but you would benefit from it. You would. And the fundamental concept here is that every idea has threads. Every idea has threads. If your idea has a lot of dangling threads, we have to think about what happens when the community pulls on them. Okay? Um, I want to harken back to vampirism as an example of this, all right? Everyone has a slightly different interpretation of how vampirism works, right? Oh, we all do. There's an enormous amount of creative freedom around vampirism in this current season where we are right now. That may change. I don't know. We'll see. But that enormous amount of creative freedom around your personal vampire, right? You can control your flavor of vampirism for your specific person. Like it's very much you thing, right? But beyond you, you have no creative flexibility. Okay? I'm going to say that again. You have an enormous amount of creative freedom around your personal take of vampirism for your personal character, but you have zero creative freedom beyond that. Your vampirism is unique to your character. It does not extend to anyone else. There's we cannot build, and so therefore you can't build world lore around vampirism, right? If I sat down and Zrott's take on vampirism, that it's the vampiric magical blood going in and altering the bone marrow of the vampire to turn the bone marrow into a converter from mortal to vampiric blood instead of producing it, right? If my take on vampirism was made canon in the world, it would impact everyone. Other players open tickets about lore that isn't theirs. There's conflicts with other people's stories, conflicts with how other people want to roleplay vampirism in their specific character, right? If I were to take my lore and try to make it canon, it would impact everyone, right? And if you have a personal project that you expect to be on a world level, there are second and third order effects that would impact other people. And this is something we have to balance. And we have to be like, okay, well, we need to shape this in a way so that if we introduced into the world, you know, it doesn't ruin things, right? Um, Arcane Weave, right? Because I love Arcane Weave. I'm very excited. Arcane Weave is an example of kind of it does have a world scale to it, right? Arcane Weave is going to be put to the world. Everyone will be able to grab one. Everyone will be able to use one. Everyone will be able to integrate it into their own projects, right? And Arcane Weave compared to Vampirism is kind of on the flip side. Because Arcane Weave isn't really a personal thing. Arcane Weave is we are introducing something into the world that is world lore-y, right? Yeah, you saw the ability to diffuse shit is so strong. It's awesome, right? And Arcane Weave is intentionally designed as a crafting MacGuffin, right? It's a tool that everyone can use for their own projects. It does nothing on its own. It's to be applied in other people's projects. But because it impacts the world on a larger scale, its individual power has to be more constrained, right? We have to pull the slider here. It's a give and take. If your concept, if your idea only targets you and it is unique to you and no one else ever, you have a lot more creative freedom. It can do a lot more wacky things. But if it impacts more people and the scope increases, then it has to be squished into a smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller box, right? And so with Arcane Weave, if everyone will be able to potentially use Arcane Weave, um, then I have to make sure what Arcane Weave can be used for is very specifically defined. It has to have limits. It has to have intended uses. I have to know, if it's used for this, that happens. If it's used for that, that happens. It cannot be used for this. It cannot be used for that. It can be used for this specific thing or that specific thing, right? And as I'm designing the concept that's meant to be used for a wider player base, it's I'm having to think about what will happen if someone else takes my thing and does something with it. And those are the second and third order effects that the admin team has to balance. And in some cases, these can be very hidden. Very, very hidden, right? Very, very hidden. For example, a great hidden second and third order effect that we had to consider with the Academy is the Academy had a bunch of rubble, and we had to devise shaped charges to destroy the rubble. Well, those are bombs. Those are explosives, and we all know how much the community loves explosives. And so I was like, okay, if we put together a shaped charge, what are the chances someone is going to take our explosive and try to go blow up a fucking wall with them? It's a pretty high chance. You people are kind of crazy, okay? We'll blow shit up here, all right? So we designed them in a way with a clause that they are not for destroying walls or destroying any kind of man-made structures. They are designed in a way they're essentially mining charges that are specifically used for rubble and maybe mining. But that's it. That's it. And so, because it's something that we released into the world and anyone could potentially use, we had to make sure we pull in the scope. For people, man-made structures. That's a crazy question in the current kind of situation. Okay, wow, goodness gracious. Um, so yeah, that's kind of the vibe, right? Your personal project going viral, which it can do, has second and third order effects. If your project goes viral, you have to be prepared, right? Um, yeah. Another great example, right? Actually, here, we'll actually, that's a good idea. I'll do it a little later. So this applies to, all different varieties of things. Let's say you want to have a unique plant in one potion. Let's say you want to make a potion that helps, people, you know, under. Jeez, I'm really bad at coming up with random ass shit. Let's say you want to make a potion that makes your fingernails sharper. I don't know. And you have a unique plant in that potion. Okay. And it's just for your potion. It's just a little fun plant for your specific potion, right? It's just your little potion thing. Okay, and it's small scope, right? No, bro, it's not small in scope. What happens if another player gets a sample and wants to study your potion? What if the player wants to study the plant and determine what magical properties the plant has that caused your potion to have this effect? And what if they want to take that plant and then they want to grow that plant in order to use that plant for an entirely different alchemical experiment? You see? You see? You might think making a plant in the world is a small thing. It's not. There are a lot of threads there. Okay? The broader the threads, the more fleshed out the idea needs to be before we can prove it. Right? And when something has a very large potential impact on the greater world, the RPO team has to answer questions like what can this be used for? What can it explicitly not be used for? What are the core principles? How does it interact with existing lore and mechanics, etc., etc., etc.? And so the general rule is that broad scope projects rarely pass without extensive detail and fleshing out. Rarely. Okay? Tight scope, the tighter your project scope is almost always accepted. Uniqueness can provide a lot of help in this matter, right? Uniqueness is one of the most powerful tools you can have when trying to control scope, right? Uniqueness, turn it on. We'll do a thing. Uniqueness is pretty good, bruh. Uniqueness. Uniqueness is pretty damn good. A great example of this is our long-lived humans. All right, going into the season, the team didn't really want to support the concept of a long-lived human, like a human living past normal-ass human ages. Right? We didn't really want to. We didn't want to support this on a grander lore level. We didn't want people whitelisting as humans that have been alive for 800 years. Like we wanted to maintain some weight on the concept of mortality a little bit, but we wanted to let people with returning human characters continue to play them from last season, right? We have a couple of them. Not very many, but we had a couple of them. Very small amount. So our solution was to make the method of how those characters lived so long unique. Any long-lived human you see in the current world has a unique attribute of why they are long-lived that the admins have approved, right? Zrott included. I made the admins go through the whole fucking process. And they're not replicatable, they're not duplicatable, they're not modifiable. They're one off, scoped entirely to that specific character, which lets us use the concept of a long lived human in a way that does not impact the grander world or the grander lore that we want, right? Cross it out. Uniqueness is huge. If whenever you're sitting down and you're messing with some crazy concepts and you feel like, oh, there might be some really brutal shenanigans, this could impact a lot of people, consider introducing some uniqueness, and ask yourself the question, can I make my approach unique and non-replicatable? Can this be a one-off thing that is only able to be done once? If it can only be done once, the chances of it being approved are higher. Okay. So I encourage you guys to lead with logic when approaching your various projects, right? The single greatest question RPO has is how does this make sense in the current setting, right? Come in with an idea on how does your pitch work, right? Right? How things. How does your pitch work in practice, right? Why does it make sense given existing world lore, right? Kind of come in with these concepts. Build your project with these things in the back of the mind. Now the big thing is you don't have to nail it first try. It's okay. You don't have to nail it first try. Expect a back and forth. You step into an RPO ticket, you say, this is what I want to do, this is how I think it could work, blah, 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 blah. And then you could have a back and forth with the admin to settle on how it's actually going to work in the end, right? The admin may offer ideas and you'll arrive at something together, right? Coming in with a foundation will set you both into workshopping mode immediately, and the admin can help you spot ticket scope problems on a grander scale, right? We've had a couple of those this season. We're like, hey, this is too broad. This is going to impact too much people. We got to pull this back, or we got to make it unique, or blah, 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 right? So, before we move on, do we have any questions about RP ticket scope and the concept of like second and third order effects or magical limitations? Let's see. You got any questions? Let's do a little bit of questions here. Yeah, no gifts in here, doofus, and put them somewhere else. I call the admins doofuses, like programmatically on a regular basis. It's great.
It's very fun. There are certain conditions where typing commands don't get put out into like system chat, and we do get called a doofus whenever we do it. It's very entertaining.
Yeah, when they accidentally put like a little tick or something when they're trying to open the console, I call them doofuses. Yeah, I literally I have several places. I think also if you try to draw your own blood and you're not a human or a werewolf, um, it also calls you a doofus.
Trying to turn into a bat, I think calls you a doofus if you're not a vampire.
Yeah. 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 All right, questions. I'm giving it another minute for any questions regarding RPO ticket scope and the concept. If you have any, throw them in there. Get them in there. Any tips on forcing something to be unique to your character? There are a variety of ways of doing this. It kind of depends on a per character shenanigan, right? A very easy, nailed it kind of scenario is like bloodline related stuff or hereditary related stuff. For example, a lot of the unique things that I did with Zrott and still are doing with Zrott, are because Zrott has a hereditary blood disease, a unique hereditary blood disease that is scoped to his specific bloodline and family that has caused him all kinds of fucking problems. No, he's not cured. No, he's not cured. Why is he still wearing? Why do you think he's still wearing a mask? No, but yeah, sorry, it's Zrott spoilers for those who didn't know. But no, so there are aspects where you can add physical attributes to your character that are unique, and that's one potential hook in why something is unique to your character. Another situation could be the environment and the situation. For example, in Vardoran, the academy is a unique location. I will not be providing spoilers on my academy plotline. There is one. It's just very down low and low key. But the academy is a very unique location historically. Not only because of its association with the lay, but because of history and shenanigans. Like, it is a very unique location. And so that unique location is another uniqueness hook I can grab, right? So my encouragement would be to look for attributes of your character or your plot or your living circumstances that are unique and potentially hook into those, right?
Something I could also recommend is that if you're creating a character concept and you realize that your character concept is actually very similar to somebody else's character concept, something that could work out is talking to them like, what makes your character concept very unique, and how can I differentiate, though we have similarities, how can I make us both unique in our own ways? That's also something I highly recommend.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Discussing with admins how to manage the second and third order effects inherent in a project submitted is wholly on the table, right? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And in some cases, second and third order effects can be managed. In some cases, they can't be. It depends. Um, we'll do a little fun exercise a little bit later. But yes, sitting down, and if you spot second and third order effects in your own project. You can absolutely bring that up and be like, hey, do you think this could be a problem? Do you think we need a limitation here or there? Or if the admin says, what you're trying to do could impact, you know, rotlings on a grander scale in a very fundamental way, then you could be like, "Oh, I see what you mean. Okay, is there a way around that? Is there a way we could make this more unique so it doesn't impact every rotling?" Et cetera, et cetera. All right, you guys got like 20 more seconds for any lingering questions. Are there instances where uniqueness is permitted to circumvent general lore if proper effort is put forth? Or if not, what are general best practices for making sure character uniqueness doesn't conflict with world lore? The big rule of thumb here is it depends on the world lore, to be frank. Um, for example, like we have it in world lore that magical cores are a thing. If you have a uniqueness thing where you don't have a magical core and it's something entirely different, it's a little weird. It's a little strange. But it's not the end of the world, and you might be okay. It depends, right? It's gonna be very, 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 very situation dependent. If it's something like, oh, I have a very unique attribute and my human became a daemon upon death. No. Nope. That's not what a daemon is, fundamentally. So no, it's not a thing. You would not be a daemon. If that was ever allowed, you would be something entirely different fundamentally, right? So it kind of varies. We have some things in world lore that are very hard set in stone. That is what it is, period. And then you have some things that are like, yeah, this is kind of more theory. This is more how it's a little more wishy-washy. It's not as a hard world fact. My best recommendation is to ask. If you kind of feel like that, if you have an idea and you're wondering if uniqueness could let you float that idea, and in a way that would bend a couple general world stuff, feel free to pop an RPO ticket and ask. Let us know, and we'll be straight up with you. We'd be like, we see what you want, and we get it would be a unique thing, but we consider this thing you're attempting to bend to be a very core fundamental rule of the universe that we don't want to have bent. And that's okay. That's okay. You go, okay, salute. 10 out of 10. Thanks for letting me know. And then you close the ticket out and you go back to brainstorming or et cetera, et cetera. Okay. We move on to what makes a good RPO journey. We've had a couple questions about this thus far. I have a whole bunch of little shenanigans and opinions. Now, this will vary, right? Disclaimer. The answer to this question will vary from person to person because we all DM differently, right? Obviously, right? The common sense disclaimer, obviously, right? Like clearly. That being said, based on I have been playing here since the season before last season. Um, I've done a lot of RPO shit. The admins that have handled my RPO tickets in the past, they know. I would not be surprised if my insane science has fucking scarred them for eternity in one way or another. So I've done a lot of RPO tickets. I've done a lot of projects. I've done a lot of inventions. I've messed around with the admin plotline a lot in the past. And so the following is my takes on what makes a good RPO journey, right? In my opinion, there are a couple things actually. The first concept, which I really, really like personally, right? I am a big fan of this observational lore building. Observational lore building. The concept here is that we are. Oh, jeez, I messed it up. It's a disaster. I lost it. Oh my god, I clicked the wrong button. Wait, there's another one. What? Hold. Hold. I'm a professional, I swear. Okay.
I
Okay.
believe in
Okay.
you.
Okay. Okay. I got it. So where was I? The fundamental truth of the role-playing environment we exist in is that we play in V Rising. We play in V Rising. Duh. This means V Rising has a lot of lore automatically baked into it. I know, whoa, is that crazy? We play in V Rising? Whoa, crazy. I had no idea. Whoa. V Rising has a lot of lore baked into it. It does. It has a lot of lore. Some of that we kind of throw out the window regarding historical stuff. Some of it we keep. But ultimately, it is our world foundation. Vardoran, V Rising, the video game, is our lore foundation. Now, as modding evolves and I come up with black magic to do stuff, we might be able to adjust a few things. But generally speaking, um, there's a lot of lore baked into the world that you can observe directly. Not just spells, but the ambient environment as well, right? You can go into some of the funnest RP that I've had. You can go human form and walk around almost anything, right? You can walk through Dunley. You can go into churches. You can stand next to Dunley nuns. You can go through in the entire Transcendum territory and no Transcendum people attack. I don't even think V-Bloods attack you when you're in human form in Transcendum. You can literally inspect the environment. And surprisingly, the devs did a really good job at placing props that are kind of relevant. One of my funnest locations to do observational RP in is that trend, I can't remember her name. The Transcenda box with like the 4 different kinds of guns, right? Where you get radium from
Ziva.
her. Ziva, thank you. The crazy cool thing, right? Ziva unlocks radium. Has anyone here ever looked at the props in Ziva's room? Is anyone off there? Is anyone? I know you're blind. Has anyone ever looked around the props in Ziva's room? Greece, not the season. Fair. There are tanks that refine them. Metal pipes. Spent a lot of time staring at chalkboards. Okay. Too busy looking at the plants. Sure. The furnace, like its reactors. Yep, furnaces. Yeah. It's very fascinating. If you look at the actual, like, right before Ziva's little platform that she's on, there's this whole forge. And it's a forge with these like canisters of mutant grease and pipes that seem to go into the forges and whatnot. And then there's tech scrap in boxes around, etc., etc. It's really cool. And it's like they literally took the material requirements of radium and have fizz reps for that in the world. So a lot of and this is pretty damn regular for most boxes. Yeah. Like Black Brew's lab is interesting too. Cyril with all of his interesting various forging equipment around, right? The environment's scope to what you unlock most of the time. Level design is advanced fizz wrapping. Exactly. And so what's really cool is that most of the time when I go unlock a V-Blood as Zrott, I get the V-Blood unlock, but then I will walk around the area and say, oh, I inspect the design of this forge. Oh, I inspect the design of this glassware. Oh, I look around and I check this and I check that. And I will go around to props in the area and RP out my character, essentially obtaining the boss knowledge from the ambient environment. It's very, very fun. It's very cool. And you can also come up with theories on religions and stuff and luminance things and shared iconography. Another really fun one for those of you who are unholy magic enjoyers, and Art is my resident unholy magic ninja, especially with regards to the Farbane unholy sites. Art, how many are there? I think there are 5 of them. There are 5 sites in Farbane that are little unholy sites with this unique vertical pillar that only appears in one or two other places in the game. Um, yeah, Twiggles found one of those. They're really cool. They always have some unholy shenanigans going on. One of them is on a plot. Yes, exactly. They're really cool. And there are some symbols on a couple of those rocks, which appear in a couple of the places in the world, and it makes you connect. Oh, that's really cool. What if this means it's over there? And that means these people are associated with those people, and blah blah blah, et cetera, right? It's very cool. So observational world building is fantastic. Architecture, props, symbology, cultural differences. How do transcendent people not starve? Can anyone guess? If we look at transcendent, what do they eat? Does anyone know what transcendent people eat? Rats is the correct, yeah. Rats, kind of some weird, funky, warped looking pumpkins and shit. They have a couple farms up in Rustlock. They do farm rats. They have horrible hydroponics, but they have hydroponics. Ah, fascinating. Only place in the world where we see them growing plants in kind of hydroponic-esque setups. That's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. All right. All right, right? So that kind of like being able to deduce and come up with and identify these attributes is fascinating, right? You'll notice there's no food production in Mortium, right? There's like no food production in Mortium, but they have a lot of prisoners. They have a lot of human prisoners because vampire people, they drink blood. They don't drink food, right? They don't eat food. Like they don't like it's all potions and blood. Um, so that's very fun, right? Observational world building, 10 out of 10. The second thing to make an RPO journey very good, which this is the one I push the most. Involve other people. Whoa, this is crux. Okay, RPing with others, in my personal opinion, right, is easily the single greatest tool you have. Easily. If you want to have a good, fun RPO ticket with a really cool RPO journey to completing your goal, RPing with other people is the single greatest tool you have. Okay? Every project has two goals. Okay? Every single project. If you are working on a project, even if it's not an RPO project, there are two goals, in my personal opinion. The obvious one is whatever the fucking goal of your project is. Duh, right? Get your ability, greenlight the RP, achieve the thing, right? The actual goal of your ticket. The goal of your RPO ticket, that is the first goal. The second goal, which is not one players necessarily have to worry about or consider, but from a admin perspective, it is more important. Okay? The more important goal of every single RPO project is to generate RP for other people. This is a community health concept. Okay. A project in isolation achieves its goal and quietly disappears. No one else was invested, so no one else cares. Okay, frankly, like if Larry needs a tailor and Jimmy is a great tailor, but Larry decides that he was just gonna have his servants do the tailoring so that he can get his project done to achieve his cool set of armor. Well, Jimmy doesn't know about that project. Jimmy doesn't give two fucks. Jimmy's doing his own shit up in Gloomrot. But you were all the way down in Farbane. Why would Jimmy give two shits? Okay? You can achieve a cool thing, but, if you don't share that with other people, no one's going to care. Fundamentally. Even if you invent something really cool, you could sit there in your room, in your basement, as a little tiny fucking, gremlin scientist and invent a way to deal with snares in an ultimately safe way, and then you don't involve anyone, and then you go into the world and say, I have solved the snare problem. No one's gonna care. People are gonna be like, really? Really? Uh-huh. You solved the snare problem. Uh-huh, sure. Uh-huh. Look, we already have methods of doing it. We haven't really worked with you. We don't really know you very well. Like, look, right, like, okay, sure, bud. And then you have to sell your result. It doesn't work well, right? So A project that pulls in even one or two people creates hooks, investment, questions. Characters loop into each other's stories. This provides natural on ramps to friendships and collaborations and long term dynamics, right? Let's say Larry needs a tailor and Jimmy is a great tailor. And so Larry advertises on a Waygate and is like, I need a good tailor. And then, Jimmy's like, I am a great tailor. And Larry's like, okay, well, can you help me with this? And Jimmy's like, yeah, what the fuck are we doing? Whoa, a what question? Questions that start with the word what are amazing. Now, uh, a question has been asked about you and your project. If you're doing this project, it's like, I need help with something. And then people are like, well, what are you doing? That is an opening for you to tell other people about your project. Now curiosity has been, sparked. Maybe they come and help you with your project, but they're like, your project's really cool. Could I keep helping you with this? Or maybe they go tell someone else about your project. Then someone else is like, hey, I heard you're working on this project and I would like to help. All of a sudden, right? Now you have RP'd with another person. You've got this relationship, this working relationship. It's easily to step into more RP in the future. You have other people invested in your project, other people invested in the result. You have generated RP for the community and it enhances community engagement. It's huge. Okay. And various ways that you can do this that are absolutely amazing, right? Some examples that I like to use myself, right? If I'm inventing like a device, maybe I make the device, maybe the device needs custom components, right? That require a skilled blacksmith to make. And maybe I collect the material component, but I go through some blacksmithing RP with other people to make a component, right? Or what
I
other
can
ones do I
give an
have?
example if you want.
Oh yeah, go for it.
I actually have a direct one involving Lothric here. Sotiris needed to make a special necklace, but they can't handle magics very well, and they were not a jewel crafter. They weren't familiar with that type of crafting. So they put out a big waygate asking for two things: someone who is an expert in every type of magic school, and someone who could handle advanced jewel crafting. I had some redundancy of people who could handle a few spell schools and some people who could, like Lothric here, handle a few spell schools and also craft the necklace. That basis of eventually connecting to Lothric through Claudia allowed me to approach Lothric, and not only did I actually get them to help make this necklace, I got to interact with them for the first time, build up a rapport, go over some things that happened with the Mancinis, but also it has built an invested interest whenever Sotiris sees Lothric to, like, occasionally ask them questions about certain things they probably wouldn't ask someone they didn't know. And, other people get to bear witness to that. It's just fun stuff.
Yeah, hell yeah, absolutely. I remember in season 0, Zrott got not Zrott, sorry, Vlur. Vlur got his hands on a little bit of forbidden material that made a comeback and scared the admin team a little bit. Apologies. And I went through having like a whole special chamber for refining and utilizing that material. And I needed to make sure that shit wasn't going to blow a hole in our estate because it was that explosive. So there was a whole process where I reached out to 4 different people to come and inspect the space and provide their input in the actual build. I remember Hart at the time was playing William, I believe, and they were like a frost expert. So I had them come over and they went around and we did a little bit of RP adding frost wards to the containment area, right? It's this concept of bringing other people in, even if it's mundane. Hey guys, I gotta go out. Tony loves this example. Hey, we have to go do some science. I need someone to get swallowed by the frog and take some saliva samples. But my constitution's a little weak, so I need some people to come with me on this trip to get swallowed by the frog a few times. Yeah, we can kill it afterwards. Right? Now, for that case, that was for modding testing, but the same concept, right? Turn a V blood into something wacky. Oh yeah, I got clip eaten a couple times. This is great. Um, totally sit down and come up with. Hi. I know, sweetheart, but not now. Sorry, cat. Um, yeah, she's here for her hourly batch of attention. So, um, turning, another great funny one that I want to do someday with Towser is like, oh yes, hey guys. So, we have to get some samples of Towser's chaos magic. So I'm gonna need you all to hold these specially made glass bottles that I had someone else helping me make, and we're gonna go fight Towser, but we can't kill him. Each of you have to get hit by this specific ability 5 times. Like, okay, well, this is gonna be interesting. Yeah, I need you to stand in front of Towser when he opens his mouth and grab a saliva sample. you know? Like adding funky little weird shit to V Bloods and involving other people in that weird thing is huge. 10 out of 10, right? Yeah. Yeah, I need you to pet the dog and not die. Yeah, exactly. So, involving other people is huge. If your RPO project hey, don't stop it. If your RPO project involves other human beings in the RP and in the steps, huge 10 out of 10. Single greatest thing that you can do. Okay? Make it a group project somehow, some way. Involve other people. Get the community involved. This is a community environment. Okay? And then the last bit, which Lothric was subject to more recently. Material costs. Whoa, material costs. Material costs are the go-to for most people, especially people who are new to doing RPO projects. Kind of the vibe is, I'm gonna throw a lot of materials at the problem, and it just works, right? Right? Because I don't really know what to do otherwise, so we're just gonna yeah, it's almost like trying to bribe the admin with materials. Like, oh well, what if I give you 500 gold ingots? Can I make my focus? Can I make my holy focus with 500 gold ingots? What about 600 gold ingots? Right? It's it almost turns into a weird little bribing thing. Um, when I deal with material costs, okay, um, in my book, in the Vlur book, it's less about realism and more about giving people a reason to engage with the game and each other, right? Um, it's not like the way that I consider it is it's not about what would be realistic. It's more what can't be hand waved, right? Um, and the Academy people are aware. Some other people in the community are aware who donated my character so many materials last season. I pride myself in being a massive resource on the server. Okay, it's amazing. Um, a lot of the times when I put together a project or an invention project, I will sneak around and I will see, oh, what is my current sigil's resource stockpiles? Oh, we have 1,000 dark silver right now. Let's burn half of it, right? Yeah, Nabsby gathering resources full time for people. I think for the gear project to repair the gears to get Millicent out of the room when she was stuck in the academy, I made them burn 800 dark silver ingots for that. Okay? Like I will burn resources like crazy because one, it's fun. Two, it drains our it drains our coffers and it drains our stockpiles so that people have a reason to continue collecting our resources, right? People have a reason to go out back into the world this late in the game and continue collecting resources to bump into other people. It gets people out of their castles because, yeah, guys, we're kind of broke now because we spent all our silver on something. So now we got to go out and get more silver. Who wants to come with? Right? Etc., etc. Um, And there are some questions on what can you do with these materials, right? In some cases you can just delete them, or let them despawn, right? In some cases, if they're consumed in the process, then you can just delete them, right? But sometimes what I like to do, which I didn't do it, I kind of wish I had done it. I might actually go back and do some jankiness to do this because I wish I'd done this for the gear project. I enjoy over here, so I can put a new line. I enjoy using them as a physical representation of what you're building. Okay, Tetris is fun. Okay, if you have a whole bunch of materials to represent a project, arrange them in a cabinet as a physical representation of what you're building, right? Um. Oh, geez. Hold on. I bet you
That was
I've got
actually
it.
something we did for the Tower of Bells when we were repairing the bell. Art can attest.
Hell yeah. Hold on. I'm scrolling. I'm scrolling. Copy image. Edit. Paste into new layer. This was the layout for the gears, right? This was the gear layout for the Academy project that we did most recently. We took all of our various materials and we kind of thought about where it would make sense, and oh, there are interclockwork mechanisms, but the external of the gears got to have some dark silver, and maybe the onyx tiers are for the middle of the gear because that's where it's turning. And then we've got some reinforced obsidian, a couple power cores in there because this was like a clockwork gear with like internals and stuff and whatnot, right? This kind of vibe, right? And so you can make a fizz rep in the world using the materials. And then if you want to be real crazy, right? Not only does it let you visualize the thing better, but it puts something tangible in the world. And if you make a requirement where the materials have to stay in this configuration, moving them becomes its own RP moment. All right, guys, like when we had to move the gears from the research division up to the academy, I told them these are hefty gears, one gear per person in your inventory, and you have to keep the item configuration. So they had to go and reorganize their inventory and empty out a large chunk of space and then pull the gear into their inventory and then walk the gear because it was a heavy gear from the research division to the academy, right? And then I was controlling mobs and throwing shit at them the whole time, which was pretty fun. So, but this idea, right? And when we got there, which is in hindsight, I probably would have done this, but I wasn't really thinking very much. In the past, I keep this around. I actually don't delete it. For example, I have a old last season I had like the reinforced waygate concept. Those that may remember Zrott's laboratory in Silverlight had two reinforced waygates. I actually kept a small chest by each of those waygates with the materials that went into constructing the waygates. I left them there in the world as a physical wrap instead of deleting it, right? I left them there. And so this concept of like, find a little chest, put it in a corner somewhere. Oh yeah, those are the materials that went into producing this. I remember some of you might have seen the device I used to cure the affliction last season. I had like 3 boxes of components next to that desk, and I was like, oh, this is the engine, this is the wheel, and these are the handles, right? And I had all of the stuff laid out in an organization that kind of made sense for each component. This is a very fun way to make the material requirements feel like a assembled thing in the world, right? It's not just you're taking materials and throwing them at the wall and bribing the admin to let you complete the thing. It's how do I make and organize this stuff in a way that is like RPE, right? 10 out of 10. Um, Another cool concept to mull over is that rituals extend this into 3D space, which is very cool. Okay. You can, like, if you have a ritual room or you have a ritual that you are doing, a lot of people will decorate the ritual room to make it vibe with what ritual you're doing. I'm saying take it a step further. Yeah, that prop in the room, that specific light fixture, that is a fixture that is holding a specific item. And I need you to go over there and you are standing in front of this fixture and you have to make sure that it stays secure because this is going to get really rough, right? Actually going around the room and using fizz reps as props in the world. Yeah, exactly. You saw it's right. Even going beyond ritual things, you're making a big fancy machine. Like, oh, this part of the machine it does this, and that part of the machine does that, and this piece is gonna go there, and that piece is gonna go there, etc., etc. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And even like small chests at ritual points with different relevant materials inside. I harken back to the massive lay laser that Sess made in season 0. For those of you that might have been around, we had a whole configuration set up with like perfect gems and stuff in certain chests that were representative of those being fixed in place and whatnot. That was a whole lot of fun. That was great. Fantastic representation of a construct. Oh yeah, that laser, the lay laser, bro. It was a lot of fun. It was very well constructed. There were diagrams and stuff. Like that concept of being able to see it in the world and like, oh, we're going to use mirrors along this because the mirrors are going to represent kind of the barrel of this thing and how it reflects the magic as it goes down, et cetera, right? Like it's very, very fun to build that stuff, even for small things. It doesn't have to be a big laser. It could be a very small little device that does one specific thing. Kasira last season had an ice cream making machine. And that's what it was. Zrott came over and we messed around with some props and we kind of positioned a couple things around without clipping, and we designed a little automatic ice cream making machine. It was a lot of fun. It was totally chill. It was very cool. 10 out of 10. Little tiny ice cream making machine, and that added a physical addition to their role playing space that was cool, right? Yeah, so does anyone have any questions about and we'll kind of lean into this. Is kind of close to the end. Well, from this point we'll just be doing questions for the most part. I want to grab any questions surrounding what makes a good RPO journey and these concepts. If you have any ideas or questions about this concept, throw them out without this topic in particular. And then once we seem to be through questions about this topic in particular, we'll just kind of open up to general questions on a grander scale. And I might actually go back to our front page and we can hopefully now answer most of those questions and things that we had there. As far as recording is concerned, you're free to stop recording now if you want, Tony, or you're free to continue. Totally up to you. We be chilling. We're kind of slipping into just kind of free form. I'll hang here for like, another hour or whatever. People feel free to dip out or stay or, do as you see fit. 10 out of 10. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them. Is it alright to pull over players into your tickets if they're helping you, even small ones? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, totally. 100%. The only thing that it gets a little bit tricky about is if you're doing like a active experimentation research, right? And you're like, oh, we're going to perform an experiment on witch dust to see what happens when it is introduced to a witching brew, right? One of those like plus magic spell brews. If you have 3 people in a ticket and that experiment is performed by only you, well, technically the other people don't know about it. You have to send that information to them in character. So as long as people in co-op RPO tickets are aware and are correctly delineating what their character knows in game, you're good, right? In character communication is going to trump ticket communication. So make sure that if you're not in the same place and people are doing experiments that you were not present, make sure that they send you that information in character so that you keep that in line appropriately. But otherwise, yeah, you are absolutely welcome to request having people pulled into tickets if they're helping you on projects, and then you can use that as kind of out of character coordination land and whatnot. While I see and wait for any other questions to populate, how about we go back to our intro? Let's see here.